Tonight, with the political world swirling, we are live for the Republican National Convention. But first, Senator Bob Menendez convicted today, guilty on all counts in a sprawling corruption trial. Gold bars, envelopes of cash, a Mercedes, what he blamed on his wife, why he says he never violated his oath of office, as former Democratic allies call on him to step aside. Just breaking, Iran and the plot to kill former President Trump uncovered. Why the intelligence led the Secret Service to bulk up his security detail. Plus, the investigation into what went wrong at that rally in Butler. Local police encountering the gunman on the roof and trying to warn the Secret Service. Our new reporting tonight. Inside President Trump's RNC debut, his ear visibly damaged. Tonight calls for party unity with former critic Governor Nikki Haley standing behind him. And the security scare right outside the convention. President Biden back on the road, fresh off our exclusive interview, the new challenge from Democrats to replace him. And finally, Bloom Boom. Why it's a spectacular season for a summer stunner.
This is NBC Nightly News. Reporting tonight from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, here is Lester Holt.
Good evening from Milwaukee, the site of the Republican National Convention, where we will witness in real time how Donald Trump has made the GOP in his own image tonight. On this, the second evening of the convention, we will hear from the one-time rivals and even unabashed critics vanquished by Mr. Trump on the road to the nomination, but standing with him as one tonight. We'll get to all that in a few minutes, but first, the dramatic verdict in the corruption trial of Senator Bob Menendez, the New Jersey Democrat guilty of all 16 federal counts, including bribery, fraud, and extortion. The evidence including cash and gold bars. The verdict immediately increased pressure on Menendez to resign from the Senate before his term ends at the start of next year. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy among those calling for Menendez to step down. Menendez saying he will appeal the verdict. It's where we begin tonight with Chief Justice contributor Jonathan Dienst.
Senator Bob Menendez left federal court today a convicted criminal.
I'm deeply disappointed by the jury's decision.
That jury finding him guilty of 16 counts, including bribery, extortion, and acting as a foreign agent.
I have never violated my public oath. I have never been anything but a patriot of my country.
Now, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is joining a group of more than 30 Democrats calling for the senator's resignation. Prosecutors spent 9 weeks proving Menendez accepted thousands of dollars in cash, gold bars, and a new Mercedes in exchange for actions that in part benefited the Egyptian and Qatari governments. All part of what the FBI says was a wide-ranging bribery scheme.
This was politics for profit. His years of selling his office to the highest bidder have finally come to an end.
Prosecutors accused the New Jersey Democrat of using his office and his power as then chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to help 2 New Jersey businessmen secure lucrative overseas business deals. They were also found guilty today. A third businessman he helped flipped after pleading guilty to buying Menendez a Mercedes. He testified against the senator during trial. Photos the FBI took inside Menendez's house showed cash stuffed in jackets, shoes, and bags, which last fall Menendez tried to explain.
I have withdrawn thousands of dollars in cash from my personal savings account, which I have kept for emergencies and because of the history of my family facing confiscation in Cuba.
The defense said there were no bribes and that some of that money belonged to his wife, who they said took hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash and gold as gifts from friends. She pleaded not guilty, but her trial is delayed due to her breast cancer. After today's verdict, Senator Menendez remained defiant.
I have every faith that the law and the facts did not sustain that decision and that we will be successful upon appeal.
Jonathan, what kind of sentence might he face?
Lester, sentencing is in October, and he could face years in prison for what was a years-long scheme. No word yet on whether he plans to resign and end his re-election bid. Lester?
All right, Jonathan Dienst, thank you. And just developing tonight, word of an Iranian plot against former President Donald Trump, not related to the attempted assassination on Saturday. As we learn more about the warning signs in Pennsylvania, here's Stephanie Goss.
Tonight, a new report that security around Donald Trump was increased in recent weeks because U.S. intelligence learned of an Iranian plot to kill him, according to 3 officials briefed on the matter, raising even more questions about how a 20-year-old gunman in rural Pennsylvania, with no apparent connection to the Iranian plot, was able to get on a rooftop last Saturday and open fire on the former president. Moments before Thomas Crooks targeted the podium, a Butler Township police officer locked eyes with him, according to Township Manager Tom Knights.
He was able to pull his head up over the roof. He did, in fact, see an individual on the roof with a weapon.
The officer was responding to a report that someone suspicious was on the roof. Fellow officers boosting him up to check it out.
And what did the shooter do?
Turned towards him, had the barrel of his weapon pointed at the officer.
And at that point, the officer's hanging on to the side of the roof?
Yes.
Unable to pull a gun out?
Unable to
defend himself? Unable to reach his radio?
Any of that, yeah. Strictly defensive movement for him to lower his head, duck, lost his own grip, right? Fell approximately 8 feet to the ground.
Knight says the officers radioed a message on a channel that included the Secret Service to say the suspicious person was in fact a gunman. He does not know how much time passed before the shooter opened fire. This new video showing the moments after Secret Service tackled the former president to protect him. The Butler Township Police were not responsible for the security of the building, according to Knight, but it's unclear which local agency was. The Secret Service says it was outside of their security perimeter and was primarily the responsibility of local law enforcement, even though the rooftop had a vantage point 148 yards from the podium.
The AR-15, or variations, the M4, has a maximum effective range of 656 yards.
Retired Secret Service agent Rich Staropoli also worked for the Department of Homeland Security under Trump.
That building was nowhere near the outer perimeter. There is no excuse for not having someone posted on the roof of that building.
The Secret Service tells ABC News that no one was put on the roof because it was dangerously sloped. That argument called into question because of images like these. The Secret Service did not respond to NBC News' multiple requests for comment, putting out a statement on X overnight. We are deeply grateful to the officers who ran towards danger to locate the gunman and to all our local partners for their unwavering commitment.
Stephanie, it looks like a lot of pieces may be falling into place. I know you're also learning there was another moment along the way that the shooter had been reported as suspicious.
Yeah, Lester, 4 officials tell us that rallygoers noticed Crooks at the metal detectors pacing and acting strangely. Police then notified the Secret Service, according to a U.S. official. All of this happening before Crooks got on that rooftop, Lester.
All right, Stephanie Goss tonight. Thank you. Here in Milwaukee, former President Trump making that surprise appearance last night, and tonight we expect his former rivals to call for unity here at the Republican convention. Plus, we've just learned about a call between Mr. Trump's new running mate and the vice president. Hallie Jackson is down on the floor for us. Hallie, what do we know?
Hey, Lester, a source familiar with that call tells me that J.D. Vance and Kamala Harris, the vice president, have spoken by phone with another person describing the conversation as brief and cordial. And I want you to come here. I want to show you. You already see these Trump-Vance signs on the convention floor as night 2 is in full swing. Ahead of the second night of the Republican convention, the new GOP vice presidential candidate making an appearance on stage after his new running mate's appearance off it on Monday. Republicans roaring in what's becoming the defining moment of the convention so far. The crowd pumping their fists in unison, yelling, "Fight." Mirroring the moment, the former president chanted those same words while being rushed off stage Saturday after surviving an assassination attempt. His ear covered in blood, but now covered by a bandage, clearly visible. Today, his former White House doctor, Ronnie Jackson, now a congressman, describing in detail the injury.
It just took the top of his ear off, a little bit of the top of his ear off as it passed through, you know.
NBC News has learned Mr. Trump has now spoken with a family member of Corey Comparator, the rally-goer and firefighter dad killed in the assassination attempt, according to a source familiar with the conversation. That stunning shooting hanging over convention week.
On Saturday, the devil came to Pennsylvania holding a rifle, but an American lion got back up on his feet and he roared!
And the focus tonight on unity. Set to take the stage, previous primary opponents Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Ron DeSantis, and Nikki Haley, among Mr. Trump's most bitter rivals in the primary.
It is not normal to go and throw temper tantrums.
But now Nikki Haley's been offered an olive branch of sorts, a last-minute speaking slot at the convention. You can see her here on stage getting ready for tonight. She's expected to aim her message at voters who are uncertain about Mr. Trump and make the case for why she's voting for him, according to a source with knowledge of her remarks. A signal of the Trump takeover of the GOP as he's remade the party in his image.
We're not a unified party on every issue, but we're unified behind this ticket.
Senator Vance, now under fire from Democrats for his previous criticisms of Mr. Trump, including declaring himself a never Trump guy.
I was certainly skeptical of Donald Trump in 2016, but President Trump was a great president, and he changed my mind.
Vance flanking the former president and his children Monday. And late tonight, a security incident outside the convention perimeter, with police saying there was an officer-involved shooting, no officers injured. Our Milwaukee station reporting the victim was experiencing homelessness. Lester?
All right, Hallie, thank you. President Biden hit the campaign trail in another crucial swing state. And while calls for him to leave the race have subsided, he is facing a new effort by some Democrats in Congress. Here's Gabe Gutierrez.
Tonight, President Biden back on the campaign trail in Battleground, Nevada, trying to shore up support among black voters at the NAACP convention and aggressively slamming former President Trump's policies.
Because we must lower the temperature in our politics as it relates to violence, it doesn't mean we should stop telling the truth.
But today, a new signal that the effort among some House Democrats to convince him to leave the race is not over. Two sources tell NBC News that in a new draft letter, more than 20 lawmakers are urging the Democratic National Committee not to speed up the nomination of President Biden before the party's convention through a virtual roll call vote, writing, "Stifling debate and prematurely shutting down any possible change in the Democratic ticket is a terrible idea." Lester asked the president about the Democratic efforts to push him aside.
Do you feel like you've weathered the storm on this issue of whether you should be on the ticket or not?
Look, 14 million people voted for me to be the nominee in the Democratic Party. Okay? I listen to them.
The president eager to move forward, today calling on Congress to give relief to renters by passing legislation forcing corporate landlords to cap rent increases at 5% or lose federal tax breaks. A key issue, especially in Nevada, where housing costs have skyrocketed. Michelle Lau, a mother of two in Las Vegas, has been behind on rent payments. Her husband was laid off earlier this year.
We're definitely living conservatively. And the most challenging thing, I think, is just trying to put food on the table and necessities.
Still, capping rents is controversial among economists, even Democrats, because critics say it discourages new construction. Also tonight, multiple sources tell NBC News the president has been preparing a significant announcement about Supreme Court reforms, including term limits, something progressives have been urging him to do. Notably, much of the proposals would require congressional approval. Lester?
All right, Gabe Gutierrez, thank you. Here in Wisconsin, Door County has voted for the winning presidential candidate in every election since 2000. Partnering with our Green Bay affiliate, WGBA, our Jacob Soboroff went there to find out what matters to voters.
Welcome to Door County, Wisconsin. Around here, people call it the Cape Cod of the Midwest. And check it out, it's not hard to see why. Over the course of the last 6 presidential elections, voters here have accurately picked the president every single time, and that means 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats.
My grandparents came over from Norway, and then he sailed on tugs.
Tom and Sue Selvik own Melody Cherry Orchard.
So 2 native Wisconsinites,
Yes.
2 Door County natives with cherry pickers in their family meet each other.
How has it changed over the generations that you guys have been involved in cherry picking?
It's always like a wave. You know, some years you'll make great money, and then it goes down.
What do you guys think the people who are running to be our leaders on both sides of the aisle need to know about what life is like? What really matters out here?
Well, what really matters is that people need to work. You know, they just need to work.
What work means on a cherry farm is much different than when Tom and Sue's families started in the business.
This is the shaker.
This is what changed the business.
Yeah, this is what shakes it.
First time on a cherry tree shaker. Here we go. Ready, Tom?
Yeah. You just come on up.
Here we go.
The shaker now does the work of what used to be hundreds of migrant farm workers. Turns out it's a pretty good place to talk about politics, too.
It seems like people here in Door County are kind of reliably in the middle. It's a pretty purple place.
I've never said I was a Democrat or a Republican. I don't do that.
What is it going to be that helps you decide?
Coin?
Say it again?
A coin?
Really? Is it like that? You going to wait till the last minute, or when are you going to make up your mind?
When this is done.
When cherry season's over.
It's not on my mind right now.
About 15 minutes away, the choice in November is very much on the mind of Imelda Del Chambre.
At 15 years old, you were picking cherries and apples on the farms here in Door County.
Yes, in Door County, yes.
She was born in Texas and as a young person traveled the country working on farms. Since returning here, she spends her days helping immigrants.
Right now, there's so much population that we got in from last year, from Nicaragua, El Salvador, and Honduras, and Guatemala.
Immigrants are a danger to the community. What is it like for you to hear that, knowing who the people are you've helped over so many years?
It hurts me when these people are working out there, hardly rest one day to see their families, and they're doing their jobs. They're not taking jobs away.
Have you figured out how you're going to vote this time around?
I haven't made up my mind yet.
Democrats? Republicans?
I've always been a Democrat, always.
Yeah. And yet this year, she's uncertain.
You feel like politicians understand a way of life out here?
No, they don't. No, they don't. They haven't lived in these people's shoes, okay? I've been through that already.
You lived that life?
Yes.
And now you're trying to help people?
Yes.
Who are living that life?
Yes.
Themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Tonight at the convention, immigration will be in the spotlight. The Republican platform calling for, quote, the largest deportation effort in American history, policies that go beyond the first term of President Trump. Lester?
All right, Jacob, thanks very much. Up next, why this summer so many are in hydrangea heaven. Finally, our Emily Ikeda explains what's behind the banner year in hydrangea heaven.
With their heavenly hues of blues and pinks, hydrangeas are a summer staple along the eastern seaboard. And this year, the unmistakable mop-head flowers are blooming and booming in an abundance not seen in years, from Connecticut to New Jersey to Massachusetts.
Blue in the front and pink in the back.
Pamela Vasquez and her team tend to the Chatham Bars Inn's 5,000 hydrangea plants. She says the explosion of colorful clusters is weather dependent.
We had a really mild winter, so our buds were protected. And then it was a very rainy, wet spring, which definitely helped the ground. So we knew it was going to be a show.
In Boston, the temperature dropped to 14 degrees last winter. The year before, -10. You can see the difference in the summers that followed.
Well, many vacationers flock to Cape Cod for its shoreline and marine life. Officials here say this sea of color is now drawing crowds of its own like never before.
Had to stop because they take your breath away. They're beautiful.
Is it worth the trip?
Absolutely. Nothing says Cape Cod like hydrangeas by the sea. It just evokes that feeling.
With the curtains soon closing on this summer's hydrangea show, so many already dreaming of the next.
There's never enough hydrangeas for this property. I hope every year is as fabulous as this year.
Emily Ikeda, NBC News, Chatham, Massachusetts.
What a show. Beautiful. That's Nightly News for this Tuesday. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night. Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.